Okay, if you have your notes here, you just turn to 2 John. I think probably one of the best things to do on 2nd and 3rd John is to, we'll go through this introductory stuff. We don't need to talk about the author. We've already talked about that. Outside of the fact that it is kind of cool that he just says the elder. So whatever that means, it means to whomever he was writing, that's all he had to do. And that's kind of an evidence that it probably was the Apostle John, the elder. And now, the one thing probably about this one, and it is on the exam, and that is this elect lady. Because it says the elder, to the elect lady and her children, whom I love in the truth, and not only I, but all those who have known the truth, because the truth which abides in us and will be forever in us, or in us forever. Grace, mercy, and peace. Now, that one's more epistolary. Yeah. Okay? Grace, mercy, and peace be with you all from God the Father and from the Lord Jesus Christ, Son of the Father, and the truth of love.
Like Paul.
Yes. Now, the question is, we're going to take the elder as John, just because. And there's both positive and internal and external evidence of that. And it just seems to make sense. But now the question is, well, what about this elect lady? What is that? Well, if you see there in the miscellaneous, it has different interpretations. The elect lady has been interpreted as a local church. The church at large, just the church out there, and or as a particular lady that was a friend of John's, and it's a personal letter. So it is a particular local church, like at the church at Ephesus, or it's the church like the Church of Jesus Christ in Orlando, broader, not just local, or is it a lady? And you can make arguments for all of them. The elect lady and her children. Well, would that refer to a local church and the people in her church? Problem. Local church is made up of the people that are in the church. So I don't know who the children would be. Their daughter churches? Well, now you're just starting to read all kinds of stuff in the text. The elect lady, the church at large in Orlando and her children, all the surrounding churches. That's a bizarre thought. Or, and as I would take it, this is a lady. And she has children. And to her children, and that he loves them in the truth. So what we have here is a personal letter. And he just writes to this lady friend of his, and so forth. So the letter gives us a good glimpse of the early believer's life, the early church's life. John commends this lady on 3 counts, and it'll be found in the letter. She knows the truth, she instructed her children in the truth, and she opened her home to teachers of the truth. So the main lesson is that truth determines the bounds of love and unity. Therefore, truth must first exist before love can unite. Truth generates love. Compromise of truth, unity is destroyed. And then I put in the parenthesis, the key, the neo-evangelicalism. The key is what to do with deceiving false teachers in the commandment of the light of to love one another. I mean, didn't he kind of emphasize that a little in 1 John? Love one another, love one another, love one another. Well, what do you do with somebody who is out there teaching another truth? I made the one comment about Benny Hinn, and I lost a family over it. Because Benny Hinn says that there were 9 persons in the Godhead, and this person gets ticked enough to leave my church. Well, at some point you say, bye. Sorry. I didn't say it, he said it. Well, you shouldn't have said his name. Well, the Apostle Paul said some names, and to the fact that if any man preach any other gospel to you than that which you've received, let him just not be loved. Is that what the text says? Yeah. Pretty tough words. Now there, it doesn't have individual words, but man, he kind of really condemns. So, in light of all this lovey-dovey, mushy-gushy, gotta love one another, let's sit around, hold hands, sing kumbaya, Is that really what we're supposed to do? What about, and I think maybe last week I said in this class, the thing about praying that Billy Graham wouldn't come to your community. Now we don't have to worry about it. He's not too interested in coming back. But it's this idea of separation. Now, the fellowship of churches that I'm involved in, the GARBC, is known for what is called second-degree separation. In other words, our churches generally, not all of them, we separate from people who don't separate. So that, say for example, if you go to a Baptist church and you are a Baptist church and they allow well, it could be a Presbyterian, but we'll get a little bit out there a little bit more and say a Methodist in. Well, you don't separate from the Methodists, so I'm going to separate from you. Now, to some of you, that may seem pretty narrow. It's a little more confusing than that. If a one Baptist church accepts United Church of Christ baptism, believers' baptism, from their perspective, are you going to accept their baptism? Well, you see, the question is, well, if you accept anybody's baptism, and then they come to me, I need to kind of wonder, you know, you didn't inspect them, you didn't do this, what kind of a church are you? So I'm going to separate from you. So it has this, who do you cooperate with? Who do you have in? Now, there's other principles that are involved in this. Like, for example, I think of R.C. and his problem with Dr. J.I. Packer for a while. I, Lord willing, hope that got taken care of. I met Dr. Packer, J.I. Packer, at RTS. And I am convinced that when he was playing footsies with the ECT, my impression of J.I. Packer is soft-hearted, extremely loving, gentle, kind old man. And he saw an opportunity, and it's kind of like being a grandpa that doesn't want to say no to a grandchild. He has the vice of nice, was my impression of J.I. Packer. Now, was he always like, I mean, you know, the whole proverbial thing about the woman that says that, you know, she even said nice things about Satan. Well, at least he's good at what he does. You know, remember that one? Well, they tried to get J.I. Packer. We had this big dinner out on the grounds, and they were asking J.I. Packer different questions, and it was real close to 9/11. Maybe. Sometime around that, though, they were talking. And he was, the whole conversation of the Muslims and Islam. And somebody asked him, they said, do you think Islam is a loving religion? So they asked J.I. Packer that. Now, I wouldn't have to waste too many words to give my personal opinion on that. And this is what J.I. Packer said. He said, well, why don't you read the Quran and come to your conclusion if you think that's a loving... And his conclusion was, no. But he was too nice to be that blunt. So that was my impression. But I mean, you know, the stories are coming out, I guess, even at the funeral. Wasn't it at the funeral when, I think it was MacArthur who said at R.C.'s funeral that how he got up on the table in the face of the people. And it says, man, we need to get somebody to write all this stuff down, because that's the stuff this stuff is really cool that we want to hear the stories about. R.C. was a tad of a blunt man. And I would just love to have been there, you know, to get up on the table in somebody's face, but you know, and so that's what happened. But people perceive that as being very unloving and very unkind. Well, let's take a look at what John, the beloved disciple, this guy oozes lovey-doveyness, okay? Well, what does it say? Okay, after the epistolary greeting in verse 3 and so forth. And he says, in truth and love, I rejoice greatly that I have found some of your children walking in truth as we receive commandment from the Father. And now I plead with you, lady, not as though I wrote a new commandment to you. Wow, this sounds just like 1 John. And which we have from the beginning, that we love one another. Oh, here it is. This is love, that we walk according to his commandments. Man, so it's 1 John stuff all over again. This is the commandment that you should have heard from the beginning. You should walk in, or in it. But, for many deceivers, the word there means that they were wanderers. For many wanderers have gone into the world who do not confess Jesus Christ as coming in the flesh. See, that was heavy in his idea and what they were fighting at the end of the first century. People were there saying, well, Jesus really didn't come in the flesh. This is a deceiver and an antichrist. Look, or the idea of to watch. Look to yourselves, watch yourselves, that we do not lose those things that we've worked for, but that we may receive a full reward. So the idea there is, there are people that are messing around with error, and we're going to lose the truth that we have. We are to contend earnestly for the gospel. Don't give an inch. I don't like it when people say, well, that's a secondary doctrine. It's not that important. Really? Well, it may not be important enough to separate, say, for a big conference. Like, for example, Ligonier and all this conversation between, is baptism immersion? Is it sprinkling acceptable? Is that you do it to babies? Do you only do it to believers? And all of that. That is a secondary realm, and we can not shelf it, but that not to have it as a hill to die on. But no one, whether you're a Presbyterian or you're a Baptist, would anyone say those things are not worth holding on to. We both respect each other's because we firmly believe it. Okay? But this one, the deity of, the humanity of Christ is not something. And the idea there is that error can come in through cooperation, and you water down the truth. We don't want to lose the things that we've had up to this part. Verse 9. Whoever transgresses and does not abide in the doctrine of Christ, and I think it says humanity as per this, does not have God. There's his absolute statement again. Good apostolic. He who abides in the doctrine of Christ has both the Father and the Son. Sounds just like 1 John. If anyone comes to you and does not bring this doctrine, so in other words, if anyone comes to you, that is to your house, or if this is a local church, if anyone comes to your church and preaches this gospel, do not receive him into your house, nor greet him. For he who greets him shares in his evil deeds. Hi, I have a watchtower, and I'd like to give you a watchtower. Could I take just a few moments of your time and be able to share with you the things about the people of God and how that you could really come in? How do you receive a JW?
According to this, no, but get off my property. But the part that bothers me here is, for he that biddeth him Godspeed, if I tell him to have a good, no thanks, but have a good day, I'm a partaker of his evil deeds.
It's part of our, okay, now this may be a Piatt compromise. Yep. And I may give an answer for this, but I don't know if just in our society when we say goodbye or have a good day, that it really means as much as it did in the first century. However, I think that we really, really, really need to be careful. If you choose to engage them, you'll really be careful. Personally, I do not invite them into my house. Secondly, most of the time, the people say, do you take the material or not? Well, if you don't, then they're just going to give it to somebody else. If you do and you throw it away right away,
that's what I do.
then that person, it's going to be, that's one piece that is not going to find itself. It's all kind of your rationalization. This is really about, don't do anything to encourage them or whatever. One of the best things I've ever done was, and I did it because there were 3 of them, and it was so odd. It wasn't just 2. And I think it was because they were women.
They had an elder with them. They were training one.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And I said, one time I said, well, I'm a Baptist pastor. And they said, well, that's okay. We would like to give you. And I'm thinking, boy, that didn't even faze them. Nope. So then I thought, I am not one of your targets. Yeah. And so I just said, oh. And then I said, I'm a Baptist pastor. She said, well, that's all right. We would like to share this. And in fact, then the lady said, who was the leader, she said, oh, well, I was a Baptist too. So she was doing, it's good, what do you want to say? It's good, it was good identifying witness practice. Identify with the person you're trying to win in something and then draw them in. Good salesmanship. Right. That's what you do. And I see it. And then I said, you're trying to pull me in. And I'm analyzing her responses to my comments. And I just said, I'm a Baptist. Oh, I used to be a Baptist. I said, really? She said, oh, yes, I was a Southern Baptist. And we had some Jehovah's Witness people come to my house, and I sat down with them, and I actually then believed the truth. And then I really believe they have the true Word of God. And I looked at her. And this is what I said. I fear for your soul. The Bible says, woe to the person who has tasted and then will not leave. I said, gave her the warning in Hebrews, and she knew the passage. And she immediately just turned to, we must leave this property right now. Yeah. And they just walked away. They left me. I thought, well, boy, that was interesting. When I told her, I fear for your soul. You knew the truth and you rejected it. She knew then. I wasn't on the, I'm not a target. You're not going to get me. And I fear for your soul because you tasted and you've rejected. You are on real scary ground. And it was. She just changed. We must leave this we must leave this property right away. And she grabbed the other one and said, this left.
Yeah, that was that train that came to my house. They weren't real experienced, you can tell.
They're the best ones.
But I just kept asking them questions that I knew were questions they couldn't answer adequately. And finally, they admitted they could not answer them. And my husband maybe he would want to come and talk to you. Never heard from him.
Yeah.
They told him, don't come back here.
That is, I would sometimes see another tactic I did once is because I teach on cults. I said, well, we have a lot in agreement. You believe in the 6-day literal creation week. Yeah. And then I said, oh, you really believe in Jesus is coming again. Wow, what a bizarre way. But yeah, we both believe that. And she said, yep. I said, but you don't believe the most important thing, that Jesus Christ, God's Son, is fully God, fully man, and he came and he died on the cross for sinners. And she just, no, I don't believe that. I said, and my Bible says that's the only way to be delivered from my sin and to have forgiveness. And I said, well, we got to be leaving now. So we don't get a lot of visits. Now, what's interesting is, don't greet them. Don't participate in them. And this is in first century. That's the thing that gets me. This is a spirit of Antichrist. For he who greets him shares in his evil deeds. Having many things to write to you, I don't wish to do so with paper and pen, well, paper and ink. But I hope to come to you and speak face to face, that our joy may be full. Children of your elect sister greet you. Amen. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? That God would inspire that book and want us to have it. It's basically got one thing. Don't compromise. Don't water down the gospel. Don't participate in the wicked deeds of other evil people. So there is to be a separation between, based upon doctrine. And there is this idea, if they come and they're not preaching the truth, have nothing to do with them. Yeah, we live in a day and age where we just got to love one another. Love, love, love. No, love it for the truth trumps just love. Some empty sense of love.
Isn't there more to love than just wishy-washy, though? I've been hearing people a lot, and I'm thinking, my parents loved me so much that they beat my tiny little hand.
That's right.
Well, right, but today's society makes it all mushy-gushy. You know, real love, whom the Lord loveth, chastens and scourges every son and daughter whom he receives. So, if you see your brother have a fault, what do? Just love him. Love him so much that you don't confront him. Love him because you don't want to confront him because he may no longer love you. Well, this is the one that'll really get you. Love him so much that I'm not going to confront him in his sin, because if I confront him in his sin, he'll confront me in one of mine. And I don't want to be confronted about my sin, so I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. And none of that is love. But they hide under the banner of love because of that. And so that's why you've got this in here, you know, the idea of that we're to love one. You've heard the commandment, love one another. But if they come and they don't recognize who Christ is, have nothing to do with them. Don't even wish them good day. Now, 3 John is very different. And this is what is pretty cool. We'll kind of do the quick overview on this. Again, it's the elder. The elder. But now we do have an addressee, and we don't have to wonder, and no interpretation here. To the beloved Gaius, the Gaius, the loved one, whom I love in the truth. So we have another personal letter from the elder. We believe it to be John, and it's written to a guy named Gaius. One way to outline this book, I didn't do it this way. I did it just greeting, body of the letter, and conclusion. But you can order this book after the men that are found in it. You've got John the elder. You've got Gaius, the receiver of this. You're going to have Diotrephes, and you've got Demetrius. And so if you understand 3 John, it's about these 4 guys. Beloved, loved one, that would refer to Gaius, I pray that you may prosper in all things and be in health, just as your soul prospers. That can be very convicting.
Be good or bad.
Yeah. Okay, I want your health to be as good as your spiritual health. How would you look? ER, so bring in the paddles. You know, would it be that? It preaches, by the way. You know, you can have a lot of fun with that. But the idea there is that he's saying, look, your soul is prosperous and everything. He probably was an older guy. He said, you know, you're doing good and your soul's doing good. And I greatly rejoice when the brethren came and testified of the truth that is in you, just as you walk in the truth. I have no greater joy than to hear that my children walk in truth. And so it sounded like he was maybe even one of John's converts. The my children. I wouldn't push that too much, but it could be there. Beloved, you do faithfully whatever you do for the brethren and for strangers. You know that hospitality, the Greek word there means a lover of strangers. And it was necessary in the first century because hospitality was so important, because the itinerant preachers, they would travel around. You wouldn't know all of who they were. And so hospitality meant that you had a love for strangers, that you would take these people in and help them. The elect lady was doing the same thing. Only she was maybe kind of bent towards, I'll do it for anybody and everybody, no matter what they believe. Benny Hinn's outside needs a room. Would you give it to him? Kind of a deal. You know, that kind of thing. So, but Gaius seemed to have his act together a little bit. Says, you're helping the brethren, you help strangers who have borne the witness of your love before the church. So this is public testimony. He was a good Christian before the church, everything was good. If you send them forward on their journey in a manner worthy of God, you do well. Now, I think it's also cool that you've got 2 John, who says, don't even wish them Godspeed. And then you got 3 John, and here he's really praising the guy. So obviously there's a difference here. Is that as a true believer, it's highly commendable, based upon the doctrine and the truth that they're proposing, that you reward, take care of one, send them off with God's blessing for the true ones, and the other ones you don't have anything to do with. For you borne witness of your love for the church and send forward the journey in the manner worthy of God, you do well. Verse 7, because they went forth for his name's sake. Taking nothing from the Gentiles, we therefore ought to receive such that we may become fellow workers for the truth. Now that maybe you've heard, and it comes from this passage, that if you support a missionary and the missionary is successful in the winning of souls, that we participate in the success of that ministry and the winning of those souls. Well, that's kind of where this comes from. When you aid help to those who are doing the ministry, you participate in the fruits of that ministry. And again, that should only cause God's people to be more generous and to be helpful and to do that sort of thing. Okay. Now that's what he's talking about. But now we get to an interesting part. I wrote to the church. So this is a personal letter by John to Gaius, commending him on the whole hospitality thing, just like the elect lady. Now we get a new concept. I wrote to the church. Now that church would be a local church. I wrote to the local church, Gaius. You would assume that this is the local church that Gaius goes to. I wrote to the church, but Diotrephes, who loves to have the preeminence. Ooh, who is to be the only one with preeminence in the church? Christ. Yeah, this is not good. Diotrephes, and may I also say almost every church has one of these guys, at least one. And oftentimes, for those of you going in the ministry or whatever, a lot of times it tends to be the preacher's best friend.
Or the one standing in the pulpit.
Yeah. But Diotrephes, who loves to have the preeminence among them, does not receive us. Now consider who the us's refer to. That refers to John, the loved disciple. He does not receive us. Therefore, if I come, I will call to mind his deeds. Ow.
That's why he's the one.
Yeah. I will call his deeds, which he does, prating against us with malicious words. And not content with that only, he himself does not receive the brethren. Okay, he's not doing what Gaius does. It gets worse. And he does not receive the brethren and forbids those who wish to, putting them under church discipline, putting them out of the church. So in other words, John the Apostle writes to Gaius, no doubt knowing he is under church discipline from Diotrephes because he was helping the good guys in the preaching of the gospel. John says, I'm coming here and I'm going to remember his deeds. And he writes to him in full recognition of what's going on here. And he puts him out of the church because he will not allow anyone who's going to help those men. He wants to be number one. He wants to take care of it all. Beloved, now that'd be back to Gaius, do not imitate that which is evil, but that which is good. He who does good is of God, but he who does evil has not seen God. And that would be directed to Diotrephes, the head man of the church. In Baptist circles, we refer to him as the big tater dictator. You can write home on that one. Big tater dictator. Okay, now we have this third man, Demetrius, Now, he has a good testimony from all and from the truth itself. And we also bear witness, and you know that our witness is true. In other words, that Demetrius is a good guy. Why would he put that in there? Probably because Gaius felt like he was all alone. Because, I mean, let's face it, if you're doing righteousness and you get kicked out of the church for it, first of all, you just get kicked out of the church unjustly. But if you're doing justly and you get kicked out of the church, it would be easy to go into a martyr syndrome and to realize, woe is me. I mean, even Elijah got that, right? Woe is me, woe is me. So here's Demetrius. You're not the only dude. Demetrius is out there doing a good job. I have many things to write. Here we go again. But I don't wish to write to you with pen and ink. But I hope to see you shortly, and we shall speak face to face. Peace to you, our friend. Greet the friends by name. And be the local church that was probably meeting his house by this time. Brief, in a sense, one issue each. But to show the importance of a local church, the early corruption of the local church. That's a thing, too, that's just unbelievable. You know, I would put it this way. My dearly beloved brethren, problems in a local church, beginning here, should not surprise us. Problems in the local church throughout the millennia prove one major truth. God is a God of grace, and it is a miracle the church of Jesus Christ still exists. When you consider it's a bunch of sinners getting together to be involved in a holy activity, and to the fact in the many ways, even in the first century, that people get in the way of that, it is just stinking miraculous that we have any church, any sense of truth, anything left of the Bible, period. Any resemblance of first century biblical Christianity. It is an act of grace from a holy God unto his people.
Did God say, the work I've started?
I will complete it. And the gates of hell will not prevail against it. It's amazing that we're still here. Well, 1st, 2nd, 3rd John. The first one, don't know who it went to. Don't know for sure John wrote it, but whoever wrote it wrote these two also, because it's quite clear. The words, everything, the structure, everything. But compared to the gospel, compared to the external, internal witness, it's John writing to the people at large. Then writing to an individual lady, writing to an individual man, and about these particular issues. Very, very special little books.